So in Psalm 29, it says, "Give unto the Lord, ye mighty, give unto the glory and strength. Give unto the Lord the glory due unto his name. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. The voice of the Lord is upon the waters. The God of glory thunders. The God is upon the many waters." And so the key is to understand that in any storm you find yourself in, God's voice is louder. I don't know what it is and why we think it's not, but I hear people talk about cancer, that's the final thing. It's not. Cancer is spelled with a small c. Christ is spelled with a capital C. That's what you have to see. Well, the same thing in a storm. You know, storms come to go. But David, no doubt, was looking out one day to the Mediterranean, saw this storm coming, and began to think about this. The white caps and the wind and the blowing and the fear and everyone else afraid, but David saw something completely different. He saw the voice of God, very powerful. He saw the voice of God able to destroy the desert, able to destroy the trees of Lebanon. The voice of God able to take down anything in its way. And that's what we need today. You see, sometimes we think that his voice is not very loud. Well, the noises in our life are too much. You can hear the air conditioning, you can hear this, you can hear that. But if you were to turn everything off, the voice of God is so loud, so unbelievably loud. But if I talk about myself, brag about myself, then I don't hear his voice. So if I want to hear God's voice, all I got to do is open the Bible and read it out loud. But it's not a very silent voice. I shared this before with you, but I love it. Barnhouse, he did a book, I think it was called Romans by Barnhouse, and he read the book of Romans every day for 13 years. Every day, the whole book of Romans for 13 years. Then he picked up a pencil and began to write. He was telling about a story about him going up in a two-seater. And he was trying to get to the pilot because he wanted to ask a question. And he was screaming at the top of his lungs. Couldn't get the guy's attention. Finally, he screamed and hit the side of the plane. And the pilot looked back and understood that he was trying to say something. So the pilot turned off the engine. Barnhouse screamed, and the guy says, "You don't have to scream, I can hear you." And Barnhouse just started screaming, turn it on, please, turn the engine back on. Well, you turn the engine off, and boy, the voice of God is crystal clear. You turn off the radio on your way home, his voice is crystal clear. You quit fighting, you quit hassling. The voice of God becomes like a powerful thing. But God's voice is able to destroy so many things. He says here in verse 4, "The voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is full of majesty. The voice of the Lord breaketh the cedar. Yea, the Lord breaketh the cedar of Lebanon. He maketh them also like a ship, like a calf." And then he says in verse 8, "The voice of the Lord shaketh the wilderness." And maybe that's where we're at tonight. You know, "Steve, I don't see anything good in my life." But there is a verse. It says, "And he found grace in the wilderness." There is grace in the wilderness, but maybe God has to shake that wilderness. And finally, he says, "The voice of the Lord shaketh the wilderness. The Lord shaketh the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord maketh the hinds to calf, and discovereth the forest. And in his temple does everyone speak of his glory. The Lord setteth upon the floods. Yea, the Lord sets the king forever. The Lord will give strength unto his people. The Lord will bless his people forever." Why? Because the voice of the Lord. So people say, "But I don't hear God." Well, you just read your Bible. "But I don't sense God." Then be quiet. "But I hear God." Crystal clear. And boy, sometimes he shouts in your pain. And sometimes he breaks your heart. Sometimes he goes after those things in your life about sin. But God is not a God of silence. I being in the way, he led me. I being in the way, he led me, and he spoke in a soft, still voice. Oh, yes, you have to be quiet. You have to consider one thing in your life. What's more important, this noise or God's voice? And to me, it's God's voice. That means every other thing has to go off. The voice of your flesh, the voice of things, and you cannot ever be afraid of silence. And most people are. Because in silence, that's where God speaks. And that's why when people lose a loved one, they stay busy. They will not come to church because they have to sit there for 30 minutes and listen. And in that 30 minutes, God is speaking to them. So they'll go home and clean house all through the night to stay busy. But it's in the silence that God will blast your heart and your soul. And he'll break everything that's in the way. The voice of the Lord is the only way to save your life. Listen to it. God will tell you no. God will tell you yes. And God will tell you not now.